I had my phone 2 seconds ago, but now it's gone. But
well, if you're like me, I have to have my wife call to tell me where it's at.
Do you understand the words that are coming out of my mouth?
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Can we get serious now?
One thing that did happen during the 60s was some music of an unusual or experimental nature did get recorded and did get released. Now look at who the executives were in those companies at those times. Not hip young guys. These were cigar-chomping old guys who looked at the product that came and said, I don't know. Who knows what it is? Record it, stick it out. If it sells, all right. We were better off with those guys than we are now with the supposedly hip young executives who are making the decisions of what people should see and hear in the marketplace.
Success in the music business begins with a dream, a vision. This podcast will give you, the listener, the insight and tools to turn that vision into a reality. Meet the industry professionals who work day by day behind the scenes, helping to make those dreams come true. Welcome to the business side of music.
On the show with us today, he's actually in Copenhagen via Zoom, but he's originally from, and I hope I don't butcher this too badly, Örebro, Sweden. Nicholas Molinder is with us. He's an award-winning songwriter, music producer, and musician who also leads several organizations focused on transforming the music industry's management of data and rights for the benefits of creators. If you wonder who this guy has worked with after 20 years of songwriting and producing, he's worked with such artists as Miley Cyrus, Lady Gaga, Mary J. Blige, and the Jonas Brothers, as well as running his own publishing company called Red Fly Music. This entrepreneur has become the figurehead for pioneering solutions for the massive value gap in the music industry. Nicholas, welcome to the show.
thank you so much. Thank you.
With everything that's going on in the music industry these days, and it's changing, it seems like it's almost changing day by day by day. And of course, a lot of our listeners are here in the United States, but we also have listeners over in every other continent in the world. The music world, the music system, I don't know if that's maybe the word I should use or not, but the music industry, let's say that. The music industry as we see it is changing dramatically. How is it looking over in Europe these days?
I would say it's exactly the same. And I mean, I come from Sweden, and a lot of the new innovative technologies that we see now that changing the music industry comes from Sweden. I mean, Spotify is a Swedish company, SoundCloud is a Swedish company, and I mean, we have a few other companies also changing the music industry, including myself. So, yeah, so here on my side in Europe and in Scandinavia, there's so much going on over here.
What do you think's driving that? And you mentioned like SoundCloud and Spotify, that the creation of those came out of Scandinavia, when you would consider that maybe that would come out of the United States or Japan.
So I think that's based on a tradition in Sweden where, I mean, when you're in, and there's been so many discussions about what made Sweden so successful, not only from a tech perspective, but see it from a music creative perspective. We have ABBA, we have Max Martin, we can line up a lot of really successful and amazing music creators. So, and it's why music is so central in Sweden. I think when we have a government that supports, music and culture in general. So when you're a kid, you can always for free play your instrument or sing in a choir. So music is a central part of people's lives. And I think based on that, we have so many successful music creators that I think actually that also been driving the technology in Sweden. And we must also know that Sweden is not only known for great technology within music, we're also really successful with technology in other areas. So I think it's a creativity within Scandinavia and especially Sweden in this case, where people in Sweden love to create stuff. So that's my take on it.
The music industry, as we said, has changed. Are you finding it easier, or does it still seem to be difficult for the independent artist? You have worked with some legends when we mentioned Miley Cyrus and Lady Gaga and Mary J. Blige, Jonas Brothers. For the independent artist, Has this technology made it easier for them to be successful? And of course, successful is all, comparable. It's what do you deem as being success? And we talk about that a lot on the show. But do you find that these new branches of technology, and I'm talking about SoundCloud and Spotify in particular, do you find that that's easier for the independent artists to be able to claim some fame and some success in their career?
So, yeah, if I can take a step actually on a higher level, and my take on this, that let's say from I don't know when that was, but when a human created a song for the first time and someone listened to that song, I think that situation is still the same today and will be the same in the future, that people love to create and people love to listen and consume. How the music gets from that to from the creation to consumption, it's going to change. It's changed historically, and it will continue to change. So if we just can agree on that people love to create and people love to listen, and if the people that listen, if they want to know who created, and if they pay for listening to that music, that those ones who created it they want to get something out of it. So that has been the change. And the good part is that that's the same for everyone creating music, even if you're super top high profile artist, or if you're an emerging new up and coming artist, you're facing the same industry and the rules are the same for everyone. It's just about getting as many people as possible in the world to like your music. That's what makes you successful. When I started, the biggest challenge for me, and now I'm talking like in the early 90s, the biggest challenge for me was to afford going into a studio, because the only way of recording your music was to go into a very expensive studio. And if you managed to do that, the next challenge was to someone to release it, to press vinyls and CDs and put it out in the stores in the world so people could buy the music. Today, that has changed completely. You don't need a studio anymore. You need a laptop with a free software where you can record your music in your bedroom. You don't need a record label anymore. You can release your own music the same second as you're done with a song and make it available for the whole world. But now we get another challenge. The amount of songs released on a daily basis is, there are crazy amounts of songs. So now the challenge has moved from the actual recording and the release of the music to now get people to really find your music. Because how are you as an independent artist going to be able to get people in the world to hear your song? So now the challenge has changed from how do I get the songs recorded and get it out to how do I market the song? I would say it's pretty equal, but the challenge is on another place right now. But of course, it's a much bigger opportunity for up-and-coming emerging artists today, because they can actually get their music out. It doesn't stay just here or on a piece of a paper or on a cassette recorder. It really gets out in the world and everyone can hear it. And I think that's a huge step forward with technology for all artists.
When we talk about getting the music out there, we then run the gamut of the revenue stream and how those creators get compensated. You created a company in 2019 that you partnered with a couple other gentlemen, which is called Session. And let's talk about that for a minute, if you don't mind.
When I was creating music, when I was in the studio working with my partner, Joachim, we came to a situation where we couldn't really keep up on delivering because we had so many requests. So we had to extend our team. We had to be more creators. So we started a publishing company, and we came like a production house. And we said to the music industry, yes, give us more job because now we're more people. I was so naive at the time. So I thought I could run the administration of a publishing company and a production house with my right hand and still be in the studio producing music. That's what the time when I realized how deep and dark the black hole of metadata is and how complicated the music industry made for itself. And I mean, I don't say it's easy to create a song, but what's so fun to be in a studio, a couple of people creating a song, how something can be so complicated downstream, when the music is out on the market, when there's money that belongs to me because people in the world have been listening to that song, and how that money finds me. And that made me, I said, I thought I could do this with my right hand, but I realized I need a system for this. I need to know who my writers and my producers, who they're working with. And I learned very fast that we cannot use names, because all information about who's doing what on a song is based on what we call registrations to all the different stakeholders. It's record labels, publishers, what we call CMOs, the organization that represents creators. And all are depending on my legal name to be able to find me. And the funny thing is, with my legal name, you said that my name is Nicholas, and that's right. Then you can spell that, you can actually write that on your keyboard. But my second name, that you need for my full registration, actually contains a letter that you don't even have on your keyboard. It's an A with a ring on top of it. If you can't even write my name on your keyboard, how can you do my registration? So, and I realized at one time, one of my songwriters came back from New York, and that person was there for a couple of weeks writing songs, and I actually helped that person to set up all the co-write sessions and all that. But you know how it is when you're in the studio, you bump into someone and you say, "Oh, let's write a song tonight," and that's what happened. And they wrote a really good song together. And when my songwriter came back, I said, "Great song. Who did you write this with? I want to do a registration." And my songwriter said, "I wrote it with DJ Pete."
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay, DJ Pete, do we know anything more? Lucky enough, we had a phone number. That was everything. Because, they bumped into each other in the studio. They wrote a song in the evening, and they called themselves DJ Pete and wrote their song, But that was everything I had. So it took me actually a couple of weeks to find all the information I needed as a publisher for my songwriter to do everything right. So that was when I realized that all information, or what we call metadata, or just data or information, all information about all contributions on a song, who did what, where, and when, that data needs to be captured as early as possible by the only ones that knows the truth, the creators. I mean, a publisher, a manager, a label, they were not in the studio. They cannot say who did what. It needs to be captured by creators. And if we can agree on that, we also then face the next problem. Creators hate is a strong word, but okay, let's say creators don't like admin. I'm a creator myself, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. We care about what comes out of the speakers, nothing else. But we as creators are also the ones that screams, shout, and complains the most when we don't get credited and don't get paid. And that value gap, that mismatch was what I saw. So, and I tried, believe me, with spreadsheets, with other kinds of documents and, everything. But I was like, okay, where should we do this? It needs to be on the DAW, on the digital audio workstations, the softwares where we record the music, but of course on mobiles and use technology. But we need to simplify the data management and the data capturing. We need to simplify it and lower the threshold for the creators to do it. And that's when I came up with the idea to start Session and build that platform. Since I've been there myself, I'm a songwriter and producer. I know exactly how I wanted it to be myself. So, and that happened back in 2019, and we started Session, and I had the great honor and opportunity to have Mr. Björn Ulvaeus from ABBA and Max Martin as partners. And we started this together, and we are still working hard on it. We have absolutely not solved the whole thing, but we're on a good way to help creators to change their behavior and how they the relationship they have to data capturing in the studio.
On the show with us today, Nicholas Molinder is with us.
Hey, this is Talia Litzer from God Mode. Check out my episode on the business side of music.
You're listening to the business side of music.
Hi, everyone. I'm Larry Butler, and I want to send you a free digital copy of my new book, The Singer-Songwriter Rulebook, 101 Ways to Help You Improve Your Chances of Success. That's right. Everything you need to know to launch your career as a singer-songwriter, all based on my 40 years in the live performance arena, and believe me, I've seen it all. In my book, you'll find the 10 things you have to deal with before even thinking about becoming a singer-songwriter-performer. You'll also learn about the 5 things every singer-songwriter can do this weekend to make their live show better. 5 things I can guarantee that you are not doing already. Plus, there's tips on songwriting and staging, photo and video shoots, publishing, merch, dozens of other topics, all written for people who don't particularly like to read. And again, it's free. Just go to the Business Side of Music website homepage and look for my book cover. Click on it, and a free digital copy of my book will be yours. I'm Larry Butler, and I approve of this message.
Whether you consider yourself a musician or not, music is all around us, and it affects our everyday lives, whether it's background music influencing our shopping habits in a store, organ music adding the vibe to a baseball game, or a playlist convincing us to keep going on that last mile of a run. I'm Mindy Peterson, host of the podcast Enhanced Life with Music, where we take a holistic look at music's benefits through the lens of science and medicine, entertainment, and business. You can find me and Enhance Life with Music at mpetersonmusic.com/podcast or wherever you get your audio.
You're listening to the Business Side of Music.
I want to talk about, you use the word simplify. Do you have an idea, and what's your thought process on why the industry made things so complicated? Because that's what we're talking about here, the overcomplication of administering music to make sure that the credit is given where credit is due. Do you think that the system that is in place, that's probably been there, 60, 70, 80, 100 years, do you think that is just because that's how they did it back then and they never transitioned into what technology is today? Or do you think there's just some deep, dark hole where people just like to keep it complicated so it's not too easy for independents, or it's not too easy for creatives to figure it out themselves? What's your thought process on that?
No, so I think there's no one that really have a bad intention or ever had a bad intention and try to make it complicated. Of course, today it is a bit more complicated because people are working in new constellations. We don't meet each other when we write music, and there's so many people and interested parties in on a song. But what makes it so complicated? So let me do something that some creators don't like. But let's say that the song that we write and produce together and record, let's say that that's a product. And some creators don't like to call a song a product, but if we put something out to the market and we want to get paid for it when it's used, I think we can call it a product. If we can compare a song to another product, and I have a bottle of water here, for example. The developer of this bottle of water have 100% control of where all the parts come from, where they get the water inside, how much they pay, who's involved. And when they put it out to the market, they sell it to a distributor. And when the distributor sells it, the money flows back. And it's pretty easy to track where the money should go. If this was a song, the bottle of water was a song, we don't know where the package comes from, where the bottle comes from. We have no idea where the water comes from. And we don't know when we sell this product, who we should pay, who should we pay for the water, who do we pay for the bottle. And we put 1,000 of them on the square out there. We put a bucket in front of them and say, if you take one, please put some money in the bucket. So it's an uncontrolled situation of the product. And what makes it so complicated with our song is because we don't do what I think is the most important thing to do. Identify, first of all, who's involved. We don't have to talk about splits or anything like that. We just need to identify who's on it. Who are they? And we need to use the international music industry identifiers to do that, because as I said before, we can't use names because there's duplicates of names and there's weird spellings and weird letters and all that. So we need to use the identifiers. If we just can do that, identify who's doing what on the song, that's the first step. And that's where we fail most of the times today.
The identifier that you're talking about, is this something that should be created and implemented in the studio, or should it go before that? Where does that fall into place, and what is that exactly?
So it's get very complicated, but let me just mention them, and we're not going to spend details on it now because that's going to take a long time. Let's start with saying that if we make it simple, let's see the song, what we call the song that we put out, divide that into two parts. One part that we call the musical work or the composition. And that is what we call songwriting or publishing. And on the other hand, on the other side, we have the master, the recording, the artist, the performers, and what we call the label side. What controls who's doing what here are 5 identifiers, and those 5 identifiers are used worldwide. And if we start on the songwriter side, every songwriter and every publisher, even if you're self-published or if you're assigned to a publisher, everyone needs to have what's called an IPI. Interested parties information. It's a weird acronym, but I know but you need to know your IPI as a songwriter, because if you don't have an IPI, you cannot get 1 cent from your songwriting when the music is used. It's equal going to the bank, try to withdraw cash and not knowing your social security number. You need to know that. And when you write a new musical work, together with someone, or if you're published or self-published, when you do the registration to your society, which in the American case is going to be either CSAC, ASCAP, BMI, GMR, or AMRA, for example, you get a unique identifier for that musical work, and that's called ISWC. So that's the 2 identifiers on that side, on the songwriting side. And here it gets a bit confusing because on that side, you cannot hear anything. The ISWC and IPI is just information about who wrote the song. But as soon as you start recording this song, putting sound to it, you get to the recording side. And when you record something called a master, when we can listen to the song, that recording needs to have an ISRC, which is the unique identifier for that recording. And everyone that plays, produce, or do any kind of contribution on that recording needs an IPN, an International Performer Number, which is your unique identifier for you as a performer. Interestingly enough, and where it gets confusing, if you both wrote the song, the musical work, and you play, you're the same person doing 2 separate things, and you need both identifiers. And to make it a bit more complicated, IPN is not used in the whole world. If you're a performer, some countries are using different. US, for example, are not using IPN. So therefore, there's a 5th identifier called ISNI, International Standard Name Identifier. And that is more an umbrella for all the different 4 identifiers that keeps track of what you're doing as a songwriter, a performer, and what you're linked to, what compositions and what recordings you're linked to. But if all those 5 identifiers are in harmony before the first commercial release, and harmony is the wrong word, if all those 5 identifiers are assigned and linked before the first commercial release of your song, the chances for you to get correctly credited and, more importantly, paid, because the money will find you, that chance is so much bigger if you do that before. I know that this sounds a bit complicated, and the answer, yes, it is. But what Session does, my solution, is that we do that for you in the background, because we think technology solves so much other things in life, and we think that you as a creator should focus on creating the music. And if you just use a platform that is integrated with your DAW, Pro Tools, Logic, Ableton, or Steinberg, or whatever, Cubase, whatever you use, it's going to just be there. And together with your mobile phone and the app, you can just solve all those things. And by letting us do the identification of the identifiers for you. So that is our whole goal. But if you want to see them, if you want access to the identifiers, they're all there so you can see them. But we want this to be smooth and super easy done in the background. That's what we think is going to change how creators interact with the identifiers, that they don't actually have to know what's going on. It's done for them.
When we talk about Session and the tools that it provides for the creator, which you've mentioned, is that something that, say, an artist in Los Angeles, California, or Sao Paulo, Brazil, or Tokyo, Japan, can take use of? Can use that system? Is
Yes.
Is it available?
Session is available for everyone free. We don't charge creators anything to use it. You can just download it. For the mobile app, it's just downloaded from wherever you download your apps for your mobile phone. If you want to use Session on your DAW, you go to our website, session.id, and the download tab, and you just download. It's a software that you download on your computer. It's under 80 megabytes, I think. So it's a small installation, and you automatically just get it on your computer. And everything you do from that moment on will be synced between, with your mobile, and the computer will always be synced. We work with BMI and ASCAP, are the two societies that we work with in the US. So if you're a member of either one of them, you can verify your identity. BMI will launch that service very shortly. ASCAP will come. I think it's going to take another couple of weeks before they launch it, but they're both on board. So we will be able to provide just a short explanation what we do with them. Since it's so hard for the creators to keep track of and know those identifiers, what Session does, we have something called the Creator ID verification, where we, when you create your account, verify that code with your name and your information, with your society. So from that moment when you're verified, you never ever have to think about those identifiers anymore. So when you use Session, when you work with people, those identifiers will always be correct and linked to all music you're part of. And that anyone that's used your music will find you when they have money for you.
And does it automatically generate a new identifier with each individual project?
Yeah, so Session is an ISRC agent, so we can actually assign ISRCs for your project. If we back to when we talked about the identifiers, all identifiers that is based on the songwriter side, the publisher on music work side, it's a bit more complicated because it's that those identifiers are a bit more controlled by the societies. But we are the only service that have access to assign those identifiers. But we as Session, we don't do that on our own. We do that in collaboration with the societies we work with. But yes, we help the creators to assign and link the identifiers at the point of the creation of the song.
And when you talk about at the point of the creation of the song, is that pre-master?
Yeah, so when the ISWC, the musical work or the songwriter, the composition, that identifier can be assigned as soon as we make the song. If you and I write a song together, what's called the copyright that protects what you and what we just wrote, that kicks in when we make the song we just wrote tangible. If we document it on paper, recording, whatever we do, and that when we have that new song that we just wrote, when that's tangible, we can actually assign an ISWC to it then. And if you and I decide to add more people onto this new song or new composition we wrote, everyone's going to refer to the same ID for the song we wrote. So therefore, it's good to assign that as early as possible. When it comes to the ISRC, there's not really a need for assigning an ISRC identifier for the recording until we actually put it out on the market. So we can wait with that. The most important thing is, though, that we track everyone that are doing any kind of contribution to it. Plays, sings, produce, or whatever they do, we need to link them to this recording. So when we add the ISRC to it, we then know exactly who did what on that, and we can link the codes before the first commercial release.
Hey, this is April Ryder, and you are listening to The Business Side of Music with the fantastic Bob Bender.
You're listening to The Business Side of Music.
Since 1963, Korg has been creating new experiences in music and performance. That is what drove the creation of some of Korg's most legendary products, such as the Poly 6, the M1, the Electribe, the Triton, the Minilogue, the Kronos, Wave State, Op6, and most recently the Nautilus, which is what we have here in our studio. Korg is dedicated to creating new, innovative, and uncompromising instruments which maintain the highest quality to inspire music makers, past, present, and future. Visit Korg.com or your favorite Korg dealer to get your hands on one of their products and start creating new music always. Korg, the official sponsor of The Business Side of Music.
Are you curious about Gordon Lightfoot's songwriting process, or what it was like working with Prince in the 80s? Have you ever given any thought to what goes into a golf course design or writing a book? I'm Steve Waxman, the host of The Creationist, a podcast about people who create. Each episode features a different creator sharing stories that I hope will inspire your own creativity. The Creationist is available now on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
You're listening to the business side of music.
I want to talk about another organization that you founded back in 2016, which is the Music Rights Awareness Foundation. How did that come about? And in the notes that were sent to me, it's an apolitical foundation, and it's providing an educational solution. But let's talk about the nuts and bolts of what Music Rights Awareness Foundation is all about.
So first, as a songwriter and music producer, every time questions and issues about rights-related things came up, there was so many different explanations from different people, and it was so hard to really understand what's really the truth here. And also, I met so many music creators in my days that don't even know the difference between a publisher and a label, because that can be really tricky. And on top of that, when I really understood how complicated the industry is with all the identifiers and roles, how roles are linked to identifiers, and I realized then that the level of knowledge within the creative community worldwide about this is way too low. And it's not enough of just creating a tool like Session that we can put in the hands of the creators if they don't know what it is. Again, if I compare to other things, I mean, if you put someone in a car without a driving license, you can't, you know it's a car, but you really don't know how to drive it. And this was the same thing. Björn, Max, and I, we said, we also need to educate. And we know that this sounds like, it's like climbing Mount Everest. It's a huge thing to take on. And we, of course, understood early that we cannot do it ourselves. But we wanted to make a digital, scalable awareness platform that could be also free for all creators in the whole world, explaining more or less two things: the music industry structure and how contributions roles on a song links to identifiers and why that's so important. I came up with the idea how we should use what we call micro-learning, and it should be available everywhere where creators might want to know something. So micro-learning means that if you want to know something, you don't get a panel or a full keynote that's 45 minutes long. You get information about just that piece, and it should never be longer than 45 seconds. And it should be on mobile, but it should also be in Pro Tools or Logic, wherever you want to have it. Boom, if we want to know, you said IPI, what's that again? And just get it. So with that idea and a very strong will to help creators, but also the full understanding we cannot do it ourselves, we looked for a partner, and we were so lucky that we found a really amazing partner, and that is the UN and the UN agency WIPO in Geneva. And WIPO stands for World Intellectual Property Organization. So together with WIPO, we formed the consortium WIPO for Creators. And together with the UN and WIPO, we're actually now building this education platform that's going to be available free for all creators on all 7 official UN languages. So we're going to reach a lot of people. And we do that as a complement with the tool that we provide them to actually capture the data.
Now, is that something that's part of Session, or is it a standalone entity?
It's a completely standalone entity. And I'm so glad that you asked me that question, because if there's a competition in the world who's wearing most different hats representing most different things, I will probably win that. And because I have so many different hats and also there's other projects that I'm also involved in. But thank you for asking that question. And it's so important to highlight that WIPO for Creators, it's not a promotion vehicle for Session. It's completely different. It's just so that the same founders had 2 ideas, and they're very similar in the same area, but completely different. And in WIPO for Creators, anyone is welcome. Even the Session competitors in the world, anyone is welcome.
And how do they get involved in that? Is this something they sign up for?
So right now we're building this platform, and we have an amazing advisory board in WIPO for creators, and on that advisory board we have all trade organizations in the music industry represented. So we have all from the streaming services all the way to individual creator organizations, songwriter organizations, publishers, labels, everyone's there. So because we need the support from the music industry. What we're doing now is, together with the UN, with our UN member states through WIPO, getting UN member states to join us and support us financially, because we need some cash for doing this. And this is what we call a private partnership with WIPO. So it's also important to show that the private sector, in other words, the music industry, labels, publishers, streaming services, also contributes with the funding to build this. So that's where we're at right now. We're building the platform, funding it, and hopefully we will release the first version of it within, let's say, I would like to say 12 months time, but I think it's going to be 18. But we want to, when we put it out, we're going to open up for all creators in the world to join. And what it means to join as a creator is just getting access free to this and just help us spreading the word about it. So it's not going to be any cost-related things for creators. It's going to be completely free.
Wow, what an amazing journey you're on.
Thank you so much. And I enjoy it so much. The feeling when you really feel that you found your place, and that of course it's a roller coaster. I have my days as well where things sucks and I don't, but most of the time I'm super excited, and it's so great to help other creators with all the knowledge I've learned. If I can share this with others, I'm more than happy to do that.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. This, once again, it's just a wealth of information that I know our listeners truly appreciate.
Thank you so much. Anything I can do. And if you need me again, if you want to have more explanation, if we should be nerd to talk about identifiers more in detail, you just let me know. But be aware, if you ask me about it, I'm going to talk for hours about it.
Expect a phone call or an email.
Yes. Thank you so much for having me.
The Business Side of Music is the creation of Tom Sabella and Tracy Snow and is produced by Bob Bender. The Business Side of Music is recorded at Music Dog Studios in Nashville, Tennessee. Production sound design by Keith Stark. Voiceover and promo by Lisa Busan.